Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London, and this morning I'm looking at a textbook from Routledge, which is in the Unlocking the Law series of books. This one is on the law of tort, or torts, depending on how you look at the concept of a civil wrong, either as a tort or a list of particular torts. We won't get into that at this stage though. The book is written by Chris Turner. It's now in a 4th edition, and it's really a very useful book. We'll have a look at it in just a moment. My wife Elizabeth and I talked about this series and thought, well, how are we going to write some reviews? We've given it a general title, which I think is very helpful. We said an entirely new and groundbreaking style of undergraduate law textbook for the law of tort, or torts, using interactive materials. Now let's have a look at the book. Now Chris Turner calls it Torts, so it's individual torts he's looking at and not the more general concept of tortious liability. That's the back of it. There's a spine, the back of it. Now you've got the interactive website there, companion website, which is there as well, which is very helpful. The book runs to just over 500 odd pages. There's the index, which you've got at the back. You've got some quite useful, it's a heavy book, this one. There's a useful little glossary, which you can see there, just to help you with some of the terms, because we do have some interesting little words that come into the legal system, which may not be automatically understandable. For instance, vicarious liability. Now, what you've got is aims and objectives at the front, and then it runs in, it's got paragraph numbering, which is very helpful, and gives you examples of what vicarious liability means. And it's about employers and employees. We used to call them masters and servants, but that went some years ago, I hasten to add. But it's important to remember what it's about. For instance, we've got some rather good stuff here. Turbeville and Savage, very interesting case. We're talking here about an ingredient of tort concerning assault and basically battery and assaults. So you've got a case, and then you've got the judgment itself. So you've got the facts and the judgment. Lots of cases, of course, in the law of tort. This is another one, Act of God. You've got Nichols and Marsland. You've got a whole range of things. That was a flooding case. You've got a whole range of things. For instance, we then move on to things like definitions of premises. Again, you can see the structure quite clearly throughout. As I say, because there's such a lot of case law involved, it's important with tort to know your cases. There's the front page. There's the content section. Now they're all detailed contents. They run all the way through. You've got all the main ones, and it runs to 20 topic areas, ending up with remedies. Always remember your remedies, because that's one thing students forget in the exam hall. If you're asked to advise, do remember what the remedy is, because when a client comes to see you, that client wants to know what remedy he or she might want or seek to get from the court. So it's always important to remember that. Now, do read the guide to the book, which sets out very usefully how the book is organised. There are sample essay questions, and there is, of course, the link to the various websites. I'll talk about that a little later. The preface is well worth reading. Chris Turner set out what he has intended to achieve with the book. Then there's some figures that are included. Then you've got tables and tables of cases, lot of cases. Then you've got a few statutes, not very many statutes, but a few. And then you launch straight into the first chapter, which is the heading, the origins, then aims and objectives, and so on. And you do have some rather useful little pointers just in the side margin there, which will tell you what the various areas are about. That's the book. Anyway, I'm very pleased with it. I think it's a very useful teaching aid, both for those who attend lectures and for those who are distance learners, because again, you've got now the textbook and you've also got the website as well. This is what we say anyway, as Chris Turner says in the 4th edition of the Unlocking the Law series from Routledge in the Law of Tort book. A study of the law of torts can prove fascinating, because it is really all about people, the problems that they have, and the ways that these might be overcome in law. And what Turner sets out in his excellent textbook is a formidable explanation of the subject of torts in a readily and easy and understandable set of terms for what can be a difficult area of law for many to study and teach, although it may look easy superficially. And can I just say, it's easy to fail torts if you're not careful. So do make sure that you know your cases, you know your Acts of Parliament, and you know the basic principles and the remedies, because that's really about, you've got to have a grounding of the whole area. What Turner does is he describes tort law as covering civil wrongs. So the topic areas vary widely, quote, in their content and context, from basic negligence actions for motoring accidents through assaults encountered in sporting activities to the interference of problem neighbours. And of course that encompasses a very wide range of activities. Remember, the word is French in origin, tort being civil wrong. As with all the Routledge textbooks, this particular title is probably the best on the market at the moment, because of the way in which the law of torts operates in England and Wales. And I think the self-testing and the activities are particularly helpful. We also think that the book has a much wider potential readership than just undergraduates and professionals, because generally it does give some general information about the way in which this particular substantive law area operates, and it is case heavy. One of the main reasons why I like Routledge is because this particular series of books are actually outstanding value, both in terms of content and cost. And you've got eminent legal experts as the authors, explaining the substantive law areas in a good and readable fashion. So for both tutors and students, a decision on which textbook or revision book to use is always going to be difficult, but it's clear to us from the feedback that we've received that Routledge is one of the leaders in the field at the moment, and many of their titles also have these excellent links to the websites. I'll talk about that in a few minutes. What we would say is that the formats used by Routledge for their books are very much of a mainstream variety and formula, which is very suitable today for the learning outcomes that you wish to achieve with your studies. And I think it does help because it breaks the texts, the actual paragraphs up a bit, and makes the subject come alive more. It's very difficult just sitting down with the old textbooks the way I did and just having to read it all. You didn't have any of the activities or any of the other things. It was just reading very boring paragraphs, frankly, and then cross-referring to cases and with a case book. So this actually brings together a new approach, which I rather like. The Unlocking series, which Routledge have produced, use a number of special features. They've got aims and objectives at the start of each chapter, which you saw, key fact charts to consolidate knowledge, that's actually in the chapter themselves, diagrams to aid the learning process, summaries to help you check on what you've understood in each chapter. Then you've got the problem questions and guidance on answering, the self-testing, which is throughout, and then the glossary at the back. With the problem questions, torts, generally speaking, the examiners are looking to see how you answer the problem questions. There will be bread and butter essay or narrative questions set, but you get the big marks from the problem answers, and that's something that you want to look at very carefully if you're trying to strive for a very high grade. For us reviewing the book, the companion website I think has been an innovation. Look at the features which are available on it, and you'll see that it will help you with your learning, especially if you're a distance learner, and get you to become much more engaged with the subject matter. There's much food for thought throughout this excellent undergraduate primer on where we are at the moment and where we're going with the issue of tort law in the 21st century. The book covers all the main topic areas on undergraduate and professional law syllabuses, and it provides a full understanding of each of the topic areas. There is a supporting website which is unlockingthelaw.co.uk. It's listed quite clearly in there. Do have a look at that, and I'm sure you will find it of excellent additional support for your studies. We think it's an indispensable foundation of understanding of the subject which Chris Turner has produced. Let me just remind you again very briefly of the book. It's heavy, glossy. There's the back. Remember the companion website. It mentions a number of things. It actually mentions the actual web address there, so you can find that. Then if you're looking at it again, it is heavy. Act of God, yes. Strict liability and land, Rylands and Fletcher tort. Always an interesting one. Very difficult to prove in court, I hasten to add, because it's strict liability and it's not the easiest. It's a lovely tort, but it's not the easiest to do in practice. I have to tell you that. They've got a lot of cases as well. Huge number of cases. And you've got other areas too. This is quite interesting. You see, you've got a nice diagram there. And that's the case of Ross and Cornters. This is liability. In fact, this is what we're talking about here, I believe, is negligence. Yes, that's the beginning of the main area of negligence, and the novel duty situations. There we go. Negligence makes up the bulk, actually, of tort. You've got negligence, nuisance, defamation, trespass to the person, that's assault and battery and so on. But negligence is by far and away the biggest area. Now, you've got a sample essay question here, and that is done in a diagrammatic form, which I think again will help you try to work out what the elements are that you need to put into the answer. Thank you to Chris Turner, and thank you to Routledge indeed. Good luck with your exams, and I hope you found this presentation of some help, and that I hope you find these, if it's the sort of thing you want, I hope you find these books of some help as well. Good luck. Bye bye.